Update, brought to you by Simcox Advocates, advising businesses and families since 1949. Visit simcox.com or call 690 300. Manx Radio's Update with Andy Wint.
Pastor Mai, good evening. It's 5:30. This is Update for Thursday, 4th of April 2024 from Manx Radio. 30 minutes looking at the latest news on the island. Background to that news, we've got sport and business and travel updates and the newsmakers in person. This evening, government accepts the COVID report. No DIY inquiry into the Roundhouse. Steam Packets published its business plan. We need financial discipline, says the Chief Minister, and Andres Racing Association is excited about Jurby. We got a yellow weather warning for heavy rain and localised flooding, and everything's fine at the airport tonight.
Man Benham for all your business and legal needs.
First of all, at 29 minutes ahead of 6 o'clock, the Update news headlines. Fast to my Christian Jones.
Fast to my. Government says it accepts the recommendations of a report into its handling of the COVID-19 pandemic in principle, but needs to do more work to determine how to fund and implement the report's findings. Kate Brunnock AC published her review in January, including 31 recommendations. The response confirms work is already underway to implement some of them. A yellow alert for heavy rain and flooding comes into effect later this evening. Meanwhile, the Steam Packet Company says Storm Kathleen is expected to bring strong to gale force winds, which could cause some disruption between Friday and Monday. And TT competitor Rob Hodgson will continue his partnership with SMT Racing on the Snaefell Mountain course for 2024. It's been confirmed the rider from Wigan will again campaign the Superbike, Superstock and senior classes. In international news, the mastermind of an armed robbery in which PC Sharon Beshenivsky was shot dead nearly 20 years ago has been found guilty of her murder. Pirandita Khan, who's now 75, planned the raid at Universal Express travel agent in 2005. Detectives who recovered 35 bodies from a funeral directors in Hull say they've been in contact with more than 700 families. An investigation was launched into suspected financial and fraudulent activity at Legacy Independent Funeral Directors last month. And more than 600 legal experts have written to Rishi Sunak urging him to stop sending weapons to Israel. The group, which includes 3 former Supreme Court judges, says there's a plausible risk of genocide in Gaza. Those are the Update news headlines. Next at 6.
Secure tomorrow today with Man Benham's guidance on powers of attorney and more. Manx Radio weather with Manx Glass and Glazing.
Thank you, Christian. From the Ronalds Way Met officers, I've got a strong wind warning in operation for the North Irish Sea. State of sea slight or moderate and rough overnight. The weather this evening for the Isle of Man: cloudy with rain on a moderate southeasterly. Overnight minimum is 9. But look out, lots and lots of rain and the risk of localised flooding. We have a yellow weather warning in operation. For Chehenya, Friday mostly dry tomorrow with sunny intervals and a fresh southerly. Daylight maximum 12 Celsius. Evening rain, though, will clear through the night into Saturday. Lowest overnight 11 degrees. And for Jasan, showers on a strong to gale force southerly, gusting 55 miles an hour. Crikey, top temperature 13 degrees. Sunset this evening at 8:08. High water 7 minutes past 9. Low tide 27 minutes before 4 a.m. Sunrise 21 minutes before 7. And high water tomorrow morning here at the home of the Halfway Horse Tram, 28 minutes past 9.
Manx Glass and Glazing are proud to be an approved contractor with Construction Isle of Man. Call the team on 674 573 or visit the showroom on the Snugborough Trading Estate.
The Manx government says it accepts the recommendations of a report into its handling of the COVID-19 pandemic in principle, but it needs more work to determine how to fund and implement the report's findings. Kate Brunnock KC published a review in January, including 31 recommendations. The story in full with Sian Cowper.
The chair of the review's recommendations covered a range of issues, including calls for a comprehensive review of emergency powers, urgent action to ensure oxygen supplies at Nobles Hospital, and a refund for Manx residents residents who had to stay at the Comis Hotel after returning to the island. Government has now published its initial response to the 3,600-page report, confirming it supports the recommendations in principle, subject to a more detailed assessment of financial and resourcing implications. The response confirms work is already underway to implement some of the recommendations, including drafting of new policies relating to emergency powers. It says one of the biggest learnings is how government will face a future pandemic, with work being undertaken by the Department of Home Affairs, adding it is clear from the report that work needs to take place to improve the island's approach to emergency planning. Government says it recognises the difficulties experienced by those who stayed at the Comis, and Treasury will be asked to review options for refunds. A quote has been sought for a VIE evaporator to provide a backup oxygen supply at Nobles, as recommended by Ms Brunner. Government says this would cost £805,000. The Brunner report and government's response are due to be debated in Tynwald this month, with a more detailed response from government expected in July.
The Department of Infrastructure doesn't intend to hold an inquiry into the new £10 million Roundhouse community facility in Braddon. The Minister, Tim Crookall MHK, ruled out such a move in response to a Keys question from Onken MHK Rob Callister. Here's Simon Richardson.
Mr Callister linked his question to a section of the Local Government Act 1985, which states that the relevant government department may order such inquiries as they see fit in relation to any matters as to the manner in which any functions of a local authority are carried out. In response, Minister Crookall says the department doesn't use this power on a regular basis and understands that Braddon Commissioners, as a separate legal entity, and their elected representatives have made decisions in regard to the building of the Roundhouse. He says there have been, unfortunately, a number of delays to the official opening of the facility and well-documented issues with access to the building, which has been paid for through 2 loans obtained through the local government borrowing scheme. And recently the Commissioners have significantly increased their rates to make loan payments for the project, as well as other associated costs. The Minister points out that the Act allows for the department to seek information, such as reports and returns, as may from time to time be required by the relevant department or by Tynwald. He says his department is only aware of one inquiry held in accordance with the relevant section of the Local Government Act in the last 20 years, which was the inquiry into Port St Mary Commissioners in 2004.
Update brought to you by Simcox Advocates, advising businesses and families since 1949. Visit simcox.com or call 690 300.
Faster bites, 22 minutes now before 6 this Thursday evening on the Isle of Man. The Steam Packet Company has published its business plan for this year, including details about the future of the fleet and finances. Former Infrastructure Minister and Douglas Central MHK Chris Thomas believes the public needs to be involved in the company's operations.
What the public sees in that is that the Steam Packet is becoming profitable again because it's got to pay for these huge investments in ships. There's an explicit statement that the ferry terminal in Liverpool is going to be more expensive to operate than the previous ferry terminal was. There's an explicit statement that an assumption's been made that the Manx public's happy with the Manannan only being replaced in 2030 when it was due to be replaced in 2027. Yet another of those assumptions that the Steam Packets got into the habit of making, alongside the seafarers would accept changes to their living board terms and conditions. So assumptions are always dangerous. Having the business plan out in the open reduces the opacity about those assumptions, and that has to be a good thing. There does seem to be a hesitation by the Steam Packet to reveal information about itself. The second point is that the Steam Packet's now wearing twice the amount of debt that it did when it was acquired by the Manx public, so that has an implication for fares. The third point is that the public needs to be involved because the Sea Services Agreement is there because the Steam Packet's got a monopoly. We bought the Steam Packet for the Manx public and for freight to come reliably to our island, and House of Keys, which is where the representatives of the public debate things, needs to be involved in reviewing and then resetting the Sea Services Agreement. They're the 3 things I'd take away.
Andreas Racing Association says it's excited at the possibilities of the latest season after it got underway in its 2024 schedule, with racing at Jurby at the weekend weekend. The organisation's chair, Linda Alton-Heath, club secretary Neil Champion says they remain proud of their roots as a club-level group, providing the platform for riders to go and to achieve success.
The Andrews Race School, it's the only ACO-affiliated race school on the island, and at the Isle of Man it's a couple of road racing, and we're very proud to have that facility available to people who want to come racing. Our instructors are people who know what they're talking about. So when we've got some kids, some older guys coming back racing as well, and a couple of girls came through as well the past few race schools. They come through our race school and they get that grounding, they get the basics. That race school has brought through people like Marcus Simpson, who went, and Joe Yeardsley. We've got Sean Crone, Aaron Redmond, like 14, 15-year-olds out racing with us as well. Billy Neen now also.
How important is it that the Isle of Man has its own base to allow these riders to start getting their signatures and work their way up the ladder in the long term?
Well, it's essential, because if there wasn't anywhere local, then people would have to be travelling on the boat across to circuits of the UK. And it's expensive enough anyway. The ability just to start out locally and try it and see if you like it and if you're any good just makes such a huge difference. And if that capability wasn't there, if there wasn't somebody somewhere local to dip your toe in the waters, then we wouldn't have, Manx Grand Prix winners and TT winners like we do have.
What would you both class as a successful season for Andreas Racing?
For me, it's about the riders and the paddock. If I'm seeing people smiling and enjoying their day, then that is the measure of success for me.
I'd say we probably had between 500-600 spectators at the event on Sunday, and also like a full paddock of riders with support and everything. So to see the airfield pretty much buzzing on Sunday is really great. Like we put a lot of hard work in. Our committee are all unpaid volunteers. It's those little wins. You don't get good racing unless the boys coming racing are happy with the club and want to be there.
This is the most listened to Isle of Man news source, and Manx Radio's Update is the Isle of Man's most downloaded news podcast.
A Ramsey man who smeared faeces across the windows of a cafe in Ramsey has been sent to prison for 10 months. The story from Siobhan Fletcher.
Luke Jeffrey Pickup was sentenced at Douglas Courthouse after admitting causing criminal damage. The 30-year-old was told his behaviour was both disgusting and appalling. He targeted the Court Cafe on Parliament Street on the 20th of November last year and was overheard saying, "If they're going to be rude to me, I'll be rude to them." Pickup then left the Isle of Man, breaching the terms of an existing probation order. He was also sentenced for taking an e-bike without the owner's consent on the 24th of July from Parliament Street. He cycled it to West Quay before tying it to a rope and hanging it over the harbour wall. He later told police he'd done it to teach the owner a lesson and saw it as community service. He'd also admitted being drunk in a public place 5 days later and displaying provoking behaviour on the 19th of October after accusing a man in a shop of being a paedophile ringleader. Pickup was also penalised for being drunk and disorderly on licensed premises and using threatening, abusive or insulting words or behaviour on the 7th of September. Pickup's advocate told the court they were all nuisance-type offences and that time he'd already spent on remand had been a wake-up call for him. Sentencing Pickup, magistrates said they did not consider the offences merely nuisances and told Pickup he had an absolutely appalling record. On his release from custody, Pickup will also be the subject of a licensing ban.
Manx Radio Business Briefing.
Chinese state-owned banks will play a pivotal role in the future of Thames Water as the utility provider remains at loggerheads with lenders in a standoff over debt at its parent company. Thames Water parent company Kemble Water Finance has a £190 million loan which shareholders say they'll be unable to repay when it matures on the 30th of this month. In the case of a default, two Beijing-owned banks will become shareholders of Thames Water amid tensions over Chinese investment in Britain, with the UK moving to restrict Chinese investment in critical infrastructure and forcing telecommunications providers to strip out Huawei equipment from the nation's communications network. And for a full daily market report, go to ramseycrookall.com. A global gold rush is underway for natural hydrogen across the world. At least 40 companies are currently exploring in France, Spain and the United States and elsewhere, CNBC reports. The gas is known as geologic hydrogen and is found beneath the Earth's surface. It's considered to be a key resource in the world's efforts to decarbonize. The world has an estimated 5 trillion ton supply of geologic hydrogen, including a recently discovered large deposit in Lorraine in France and another in Albania. However, much of it is too difficult to reach or process, and experts maintain that just a few % of the world's supply will be enough to fill demand for 200 years. Currently, up to 99% of the hydrogen used globally is produced using fossil fuels, making it a highly polluting alternative. And indeed, some scientists have argued that the extraction and distribution of geologic hydrogen doesn't necessarily make it a clean alternative fuel.
The Stock Market Report, brought to you by Ramsey Crookall.
UK and European markets slightly higher. The dollar hit a 2-week low, oil rose, and gold prices took a breather after hitting an all-time high. The numbers from Ramsey Crookall at the close in London: the FTSE 100 up 0.5%, 7,975. The DAX in Frankfurt up 0.2% at the close, 18,402. A short time ago across the pond in New York City, the Dow Jones Industrial up 0.4%, 39,292. The Nasdaq Tech Stocks Index up 0.9%, 16,422. The S&P 500 up almost 0.7% at 5,246. In the exchange markets, the British pound sterling is trading at $1 26.6 cents, €1 16.5 cents, and 23 South African rand 62.6 cents. In commodities, gold's down 0.3% at $2,292 per troy ounce, and a barrel of Brent crude down 0.2% at $89.08.
I'm running late again. Do you know where I put my car keys?
In the fridge.
Where's my phone?
Under the dog basket.
Bye.
You haven't forgotten that we're seeing Ramsey Crookall later?
Oh, no, of course not. 5 p.m, is it?
3:45.
I'll be there.
Life is busy. That's why Ramsey Crookall's team takes time to help you make a mindful investment decision, considering all the options, giving you full control of your financial future. Less stress, more assurance.
Forgot to put my shoes on.
See how we can make your money work for you. Call 717171 or visit ramseycrookall.com. Licensed and regulated by the Isle of Man Financial Services Authority.
The only radio station that's Manx, and we're proud of it. Celebrating 60 years, this is Manx Radio.
Financial discipline needs to be reinstilled within the Manx government, according to the Chief Minister. Alfred Cannon, MHK, claims a number of really exceptional circumstances, including the war in Ukraine, soaring inflation and the cost of living crisis, have forced the Manx government to spend money.
We're effectively regrouping, I think, after what has been a pretty tumultuous period for the public sector, a very tumultuous period for public sector finances. And now we're in, I think, a better position to be able to say, look, we've reorganised ourselves now. That inflationary pressure has dissipated, has gone away. We're over the shock of Ukraine. We're over the shock of gas prices. We're over the shock of COVID. We need to start to bring about discipline. But of course, discipline does have some consequences, because it does mean that sometimes public service is not always to the level that everybody wants at any particular time. But nevertheless, we need now, for the greater interests of our long-term security, to get that discipline back, because we've got a financial plan that we've set out over the next 4 or 5 years, which is designed to take away the deficit at the moment and restore us to a position whereby we are returning ourselves back into surplus when it comes to budget. So there's a lot to be achieved. The other point that I want to make is that we're a government that's found ourselves with significant compression when it comes to waiting lists. So across the health service, there have been thousands of people waiting in various different disciplines for their operations, or even sometimes just to be seen at the very first stages of consultation. And we've seen, for example, in education now, clear evidence that learning has been impacted in some areas because of the lockdowns and the impacts of teachers' strikes and other aspects that have happened. So, we've had a lot of catching up to do. I think we've invested a lot of money, particularly in health, to do that. But that's why you will see a re-emphasis now on that financial discipline.
Manx Radio Sport.
Fast am I, Rob Pritchard.
Fast am I. Good evening. Starting with cricket, and a new women's cricket tournament for the Isle of Man is set to launch later this month. The Isle of Man Cricket Association is introducing the Female Cricket Super Series, a short format competition for female players aged 13 and over. It'll start with the first match on the 21st of April and run until the final game on the 1st of September. The IOMCA says it will be primarily aimed at women and girls looking to make the transition from softball to cricket ball, as well as play alongside and gain experience from international players and coaches. Anyone interested in being involved in all or part of the series is asked to contact Greg Wright on cdo@iomcricket.co.uk before Thursday the 18th of April. Dates for the matches in the new series are available at manxradio.com. In motorsport, TT competitor Rob Hodson will continue his partnership with SMT Racing on the Snaefell Mountain Course for 2024. It's been confirmed the rider from Wigan will again campaign the Superbike, Superstock and Senior classes on the team's Honda Fireblade. Elsewhere, he'll contest the Supersport category on board a Yamaha YZF R6, as well as a Pattern S1R in the Super Twin. Last year saw Hodgson secure 4 top 10 finishes, with his best result in the Super Twin TT Race 2, where he claimed 5th spot. He also managed his first 130-mile-an-hour lap during the 2023 senior race as he went on to finish 10th. His performances mean he's earned a top 20 seeded position in all classes for the first time this year. Hodgson says he's looking forward to continuing to work with Robin Croft's outfit and is aiming to improve on a number of personal racing milestones last year. And finally, staying with motorsport, and there's a call for volunteers to help run this year's Manx Rally. Manx Autosport has issued an appeal for marshals and timekeepers for the event being held from the 10th to the 11th of May. Anyone interested in helping out is asked to get in touch on masmarshals@gmail.com.
Manx Radio Travel, driven by Quayside Tyres and Service Centre.
Inbound at Ronaldsway, the 7:25 EasyJet from London Gatwick's on time, 5 to 8 Loganair from Liverpool returning patient transfers on time, and the 10 to 9 Loganair from London City showing on time. Outbound 6 o'clock Loganair to Liverpool, 5 to 8 EasyJet return to Gatwick. And on the roads, temporary lights on the main road at the Whitestone roundabout Ballasalla for manhole replacement. Temporary lights on the Braddon Road near Strang Close for a temporary crossing, and lights too on New Road in Laxey between Old Laxey Hill and Lergig Raw for crane work. Hillside Avenue is closed through to Circular Road in Douglas for adjacent office window replacement, and part of Switzerland Road's closed for building work till November. Lights too on Lord Street for duct insulation. Temporary lights on the Andreas Road north of St Jude's. Temporary lights in Knocksharry on the Coast Road at the Switchback Junction for drainage work. Phase closures on the Starvey Road for water main work. Phase closures on Ballakill Ferry Road, Colby for water main work, and water main work causing phase closures on the Kean Drockard Road in Andreas. Temporary lights on the TT course between Bishop's Court and Ballath, and no problems reported by the Matrix signs tonight.
Quayside Tyres and Service Centre with 1 year's free engine warranty from Castrol. Get more with
Quayside. An Island MHK says members of LegCo have no accountability to the people of the island for decisions they're making. Rob Callister of Onken says lines are being blurred between them and the publicly elected Keys members, and he wants Tynwald to reaffirm a resolution that MLCs could only join one department.
We now have a situation where there's 2 members of Legislative Council working in 2 government departments. And I personally feel that the lines between the publicly elected members of the House of Keys and members of the Legislative Council are now getting blurred. So I'm now asking Tynwald to reaffirm what was agreed in 2017. It may affect those 2 members that are currently in more than one government department, but this isn't about individual members. This is about appreciating and understanding the role to be undertaken by the publicly elected members of the House of Keys and the role for the members of the Legislative Council, which is primarily meant to be a scrutiny function. I'm simply asking for for reaffirmment of the 2017 resolution, which was amended, and that amendment had a restriction on members of Legislative Council only being in one government department. I feel over the last 6 to 12 months, the lines between the publicly accountable members of the House of Keys, who are accountable to the people of this island for the decisions they make, are now being blurred because we have more and more MLCs going into government departments on more than one role, and they have no accountability to the people of this island for the decisions that they are making. And if I'm unsuccessful, then I will consider bringing a private members bill in order to look at the Government Departments Act 1987 in order to put it in statute that MLCs or members of Legislative Council can only be in one government department at a time.
Update brought to you by Simcox Advocates.
The Manxman, motor vessel Manxman, is currently in harbour in Douglas, leaving this evening at 7:15, half an hour early, heading to Heysham, getting there just gone 11 o'clock. The overnight departure 2:15, back to Douglas at 6 tomorrow morning. Fastcraft's in Liverpool, departing Liverpool Pierhead at 7:15, back at 10 tonight. Tomorrow morning's departures, the Fastcraft Manannan departs 7:15 for Liverpool. Tomorrow morning's 8:15 Manxman may be disrupted or cancelled. Listen listen to Manx Radio, you'll hear the announcement just after 6:30 tomorrow morning. A newly qualified farrier told Manx Radio he jumped at the chance of completing his training on the Isle of Man. Luke Collison's responsible for looking after the horse's hooves, a profession which combines blacksmith and veterinary skills.
So it's a 4-year course, well, 4 years and 2 months, and it's like an on-the-job apprenticeship. So you have to be with a approved training farrier, and you do 2 college blocks, block release a year at the college for them to check your progress and make sure that you're on the right track. Obviously the job itself involves quite a lot of different things, but generally the maintenance and hoof care of the horses and the application of a shoe. Yeah, it is long, and that's because obviously animal welfare is so important. It's not, a lot of people see a horse and they think of the hoof as just a block of wood at the end of the leg, and it's not the case. It's actually full of sensitive structures, and you have to be very careful with where you put your nails, how you trim the foot to keep the horse sound and comfortable. So it's not as simple as farriers make it look. Just the kids hanging around farrier vans and asking lots of questions and, you know, probably annoying them, and the opportunity never really arose. And then I came and worked here and helped with the training and the look after of the horses, and I was offered training basically because Michael was now heading towards retirement, so he can't shoe them anymore, so I was the next in line, and yeah, I jumped at the chance.
That's it for Update Tonight, compiled from the resources of Manx Radio's News Department. Thanks to newsreader Christian Jones, producer Siobhan Fletcher. After the news at 6, the archive with Jude Lay is on. Creator Sits with Chris Kinley at 6:30. A little light music with Maurice Powell at 9 tonight. Update returns Friday evening at 5:30.
WINT